Well, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Make yourself at home. Have a drink. While I give some attention to some underappreciated characters and storylines that I personally love. And I hope you grow to love as well.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Matt's Minis. Today we are reading Swamp Thing number 96. And just a little catch up on what's been going on. Basically, Swamp Thing now has a family, and him and his wife Abby aren't quite sure exactly what's going on with their child because they know that she's part elemental and part human, but they do not know that she is also part demon because of them using the surrogate body of John Constantine to get Abby pregnant. And they did not know that he was tainted with demon's blood when he did that. Specifically, the demon Nergal gave John Constantine a blood transfusion to heal him early on in his series. And this would be a good time right now, just in case you didn't know and you like these Swamp Thing Matt's Minis. I do a Hellblazer Matt's Minis as well. We are on issue 27 this week. So if you are interested at all, just like you are with Swamp Thing, about Hellblazer and John Constantine and where he came from and what his story is, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/plainstrangeandcomicbooks, all one word. And with that out of the way, first things first, we got the cover here. We see baby Tefe underwater as she floats down around some like greenery and stuff. And then it seems like she's reaching down into the muck, and coming out of the muck is some demon hands. And I got to mention the way that the artist, I think it's John Totalbin, drew baby Tefe is... It's basically the same pose and possibly just inspired by Nirvana's album Nevermind. And so the baby is in the same position as the baby that's on the front cover of that album. And we can also see that this is written by Doug Wheeler, as usual, and then art by Pat Broderick, and the inks are by Alfredo Alcala. So just so you know, this issue actually to some Hellblazer storylines from the first 10 issues of Hellblazer, so I will fill in the little necessary tidbits in order for you to know what's going on. But like I said earlier, if you want to know exactly what's happening and what happened before, definitely go check out the Matt's Minis Hellblazer podcast on our Patreon at patreon.com/plainstrangeandcomicbooks, all one word. All right, we start off this issue on the first page in Hell. And we get some nice shots of the landscape and what, Hell looks like and everything. And we get some narration over these panels, and it says, Hell, twisted over centuries of hate. A wound cut from a man's soul, gaping wide with desire. The swallower of dreams, the realm of nightmares exposed. This is the land built by lusts and desires. Rotted meat hung from the abattoir of man. The stench of his cravings encircled by flies. And then we see the name of this issue is called Hell to Pay. And the way Hell looks is there's like a lot of, it kind of looks like a desert as far as like there's lots of rock formations and also like canyons and stuff. And then, but everything's red, of course, or like a pinkish red. There's a hue to everything. And then there's giant like dragons and demons and giant flies as well, insects and stuff flying around. We see some spiders and creepy things that hide in the canyons. And there's one particular canyon that we're seeing that is focused on from above. We get like an above shot of what it looks like. So above this canyon, there is a floating structure, like a floating landmass that has like a castle and stuff on it. And we find out that this floating landmass is actually like the kingdom of one of the 3 rulers of Hell. And the reason why Hell has 3 rulers is because all the way back in the Alamore Swamp Thing, there was a war that Swamp Thing fought in where he had to go to Hell. And he upset the balance of power, and so Lucifer ended up having to share power with 2 other demons named Azazel and Beelzebub. And together they all form what's called the Triumvirate. So basically it's kind of like everybody has their own section of Hell, and they all get to rule together. So we cut inside this castle that's on this floating landmass that is Beelzebub's land, and he is talking to the Archduke Nergal, who is the demon I mentioned from Hellblazer at the beginning of this. And if you've ever read Hellblazer, he looks much, much different because in that series, Nergal was double-crossed by John Constantine, and he ended up getting captured by Heaven. And they say he was tortured and stuff, and so he looks totally different now. He used to just have kind of like a regular human body with like red skin and stuff, but now he's got kind of like white or crystalline skin. He's got like fly heads coming out of his chest. He's got 3 regular Nergal heads that are coming out of his like arms and stuff too, and where his head should be. He's got like an eel tail and like T-Rex legs. It's a lot going on with his design here. We also see that Lord Beelzebub has a couple other visitors in his throne room. We see Agony and Ecstasy, the pair of like torture demon twins or whatever. They've also appeared in Hellblazer before, but not for very long. Basically, they're just a couple demons that are all white, very, very pale skin, and they're wrapped in barbed wire and they float and stuff. So they look all ethereal. And then there's a spider who's like an emissary from someone called the Fate Mother, who is a lesser demon that lives in Beelzebub's like kingdom section, but she seems to have a lot of power in that realm as well. And her emissary looks like a big, ugly spider. Kind of got a little bit of a cartoony face with its mandibles and big eyes and stuff, but it is a gigantic kind of Shelob-esque spider. And then there are also two new beings here, and they are two aliens from the invasion storyline that happened with Rick Veitch. When Swamp Thing was away, while we were reading that, there was a big war that happened, of course, during the alien invasion, and it wasn't just these weird-looking aliens, and I'll describe them in a second, but there was like Thanagarians that teamed up with them. There was something called the Alliance that was actually like a bunch of different aliens that teamed up to try to invade Earth. But these ones were like the main bad ones, I guess, because they're the ones who transported Swamp Thing away during the Rick Veitch run. And I think I've described them before, but I'll do it again. So they have these green robes hanging around them that I think are made of plants or something. And then they have kind of the classic elongated alien head, but they have yellow skin, and then they have ears that are pointed, kind of like Spock's. And then they have a big red circle on their foreheads with evil eyes that are pure white and have no pupils, and also mouths that don't have any lips. They just have really, really long teeth, and a bunch of them just all sharp and pointy on the front of their face. And we are explained why they are here. Basically, we get some new kind of like DC lore that I never heard of before. But basically, if you die on Earth or any other planet they mention as well, you go to that planet or that maybe solar system or whatever, that area's afterlife. So they ended up going to hell, even though they're aliens and they have no concept of hell or whatever. And it's not just these two aliens that go into our afterlife concept as well. Anybody who died, I guess, on Earth, all those Thanagarians and even the good aliens and stuff, they all get to either decide what their heaven looks like or get sent to hell or some other kind of afterlife that their species, believe in. So we find out the reason why Beelzebub got these two specific aliens to be like in hell is because he says they're so evil that they will be great at torture. So he made them new advisors to his chief torturer. And also he gives them two names. He says they don't have any names, so I named them myself. One is called Putrid Smelly Alien 1, and the other one is Putrid Smelly Alien 2. And also I'll just mention that Beelzebub being a fly demon lord in hell, he definitely has a weird way of speaking. There's lots of buzzing sounds, or anytime there's an S, it ends up being like two Z's, so it still sounds weird. I'll read a little bit just so you get to know what it sounds like, but it's something that I don't think I could keep up the entire time because there's lots of weird spellings and hard things to pronounce while I'm reading. And I'm sure it's not nice for your guys' ears either. So when he introduces the two aliens, he says, "And these are my new advisors to my chief torturer. On their homeworld, they have no names, so I have given them some. This is Putrid Smelly Alien 1, and this is Putrid Smelly Alien 2. And that is what Lord Beelzebub sounds like. So as you can see, that's why I'm not going to read it in that same voice every time. So the whole reason why all these people are in the throne room is because there's something called the initiation happening. And basically that's where 5 potential demons are chosen from prospects in the torture chambers of hell. And then they go through a bunch of tests, kind of like Survivor or something. And then whoever the winner is gets to be a new demon in hell. They get promoted basically, and they're not going to be someone being tortured. They're going to be the torturer. So Beelzebub has them brought in, all the initiates. And we see one of them is someone we know and hate very much if you are a fan of Swamp Thing. It is Anton Arcane, Abby Arcane's uncle and evil bad guy just in general. And I should say these are just the heads of those, I guess, tortured bodies or tortured souls. So just all these heads are dumped into a pile of maggots. And Beelzebub kind of explains to them what's going on. He says, demons are chosen from those whose sins are so numerous that they can never be repaid. You five have been totally unrepentant, committing even more sins here with us. Perfect raw demon material. Of course, you must survive the test. And then he reveals the first test is that a special giant maggot has been placed in their heads, and it will hatch soon, so you must control the pain and use it and the maggots to build your new bodies. And as he says that, the maggots, I guess, begin to hatch and burrow into the brains of these 5 initiates. And they, of course, begin to scream very, very loud. And then we cut to the outside of the building and even like more of just the general landmass. And everybody that's there, all these other demons can hear it. And they are like very happy and celebrating because, it's kind of like, oh, it's the birth of a new demon. So then we cut to Swamp Thing and Abby, who are hanging out in, I assume it's where their house is, but we don't see their house at all in this issue. But they're on like some kind of area where there's a bunch of grass and some trees and some other plant life. And there's also a cross that says the name Gregory Arcane on it. And that is Abby's father, who was murdered by Anton Arcane, her uncle, who was one of the initiates we just saw in Hell. So Abby's kind of talking to Alec about how she misses her dad, and it's good that she gets to introduce Tefe to him and stuff. And they also talk about what Anton did to him and, kind of giving new readers who might pick this issue up like a little bit of backstory. So while they're talking, obviously Tefe is there with them, and she's playing on a blanket, and then Swamp Thing's talking about how cute she is and how she likes to play games. And he's telling Abby that because Abby's away at work during the day and Swamp Thing watches her. So he's telling her like, oh yeah, she's really good at peekaboo. Watch this. So he kind of throws a blanket over her head and then she's playing with that. And then he's, covering himself and saying peekaboo and, revealing himself. And she really, really, really likes that game. And then after a while, Swamp Thing is like, okay, I have to go actually because at the Barrier Islands, I need to check the coastal erosion there. So he's like, checking on the earth, making sure everything's good. And then he does what he normally does, and his body, kind of melts and disappears as he goes into the green to go, grow somewhere else. So Tefe, who was just playing peekaboo with him, sees his body kind of like disintegrate and go into the earth. And she's like, what the heck? But like in baby speak, she's just like, ah, and like really wide eyes. And Abby's like, where did Daddy go? And so Tefe goes over to the blanket and picks it up, but doesn't see anything underneath. And Abby's like, no, Tefe, Daddy isn't under there. And then she goes over to like the now limp carcass that was Swamp Thing. And it's all brown and different looking. And she tries to touch it. And Abby's like, no, that's he's not there either. Can you find him? Where is he, Tefe? Where'd he go? And then Tefe kind of thinks about it for a second. And then she like hits the ground and says, ugh. And Tefe's like, yes, Daddy went there into the ground. And then Tefe's very happy and, she figured it out. So she starts clapping. And then while she's clapping, all of a sudden the skin from her body begins to flay off of her. And then in front of her mom's eyes, her body explodes. And then her soul goes into the earth. And I'm talking like you could see full baby gore everywhere, spine, skeleton, everything, just in a pile of goop in front of Abby as she's horrified that her baby just exploded. But the spirit of Tefe looks fine. She's just kind of like floating down into the earth. And then we cut back to Hell where the initiates are now, still trying to grow their bodies. And, Beelzebub's talking to the aliens who are kind of acting as the reader's surrogates for exposition. So that way he can explain kind of like the mythology of Hell and what's going on, to the reader. Then we cut back to Abby, who it seems to have been some time because now Swamp Thing has come back and he's like, Abby, are you all right? I waited for you and Tefe at Chester and Liz's apartment, but you never came. Abby? And he looks down at her and there's just blood and like a viscera covering her legs and arms. And then she reveals in the blanket that she's holding to her chest that she is holding the bones of their baby Tefe. And there's an amazing panel of this flash of anger in Swamp Thing's eyes. And he's like, who did this? And Abby cries as she says, she's gone. Bring her back. She followed you. She watched you drop your body and she followed. No one did this. It was Tefe. She did it. Bring her back. And Swamp Thing's just kind of like dumbstruck that Tefe could do something like follow him into the green, because she is part human. Like, she doesn't have a green body like him that can just die and regrow. So Swamp Thing is trying to comfort her as much as he can, because this is a crazy situation. And he's just like, we should bury this. And then Abby kind of says, no, this is her body. She'll need it when she comes back. No, I want my baby back now. And so, like, you know, obviously the mom doesn't want to let go of the baby's body. So Swamp Thing decides it's probably best to go. And before he leaves, he asks her if she'll be all right. And she just says, just find her. And with that, he leaves. And then we cut back to Hell, where it seems there has been a victor in this test. And that victor is Anton Arcane. He has grown himself a giant, ugly, disgusting spider fly hybrid body that's made of maggots, and it's all gross and everything. And in the middle of this, like, congratulations that Beelzebub is bestowing on Anton for being the winner, a messenger flies in from the Fate Mother telling them that something interesting has been found. The messenger says, one of our soldiers was exploring the borders of hell and came across a flower growing at the gates. And next to that flower was a human child playing with it. She was pure and innocent, a rare commodity in these lower planes. Thinking that you could make use of such virtues in the weaving of your magic, our soldier captured the child and returned with her to our fate web. And then the messenger like opens a pouch, and there's like a little bit of a soul glowing in there. And Beelzebub tastes it and says it's delicious, but also there's a taste of something else in there, something that reminds Beelzebub of Nergal. And this part was super gross, I thought, but so obviously Beelzebub just ate the soul. So in order for Nergal to test it, Beelzebub just vomits into Nergal's mouth and face, and that's how he tastes it. So once he does taste it, he's like, yes, I do taste me, and Constantine as well. This must be his child. My blood runs through him. The Spider Girl has captured the new Earth Elemental. So Beelzebub tells the messenger that they are in fact interested in this child, and in order to kind of butter up the Fate Mother who has captured the child, he gives the other 4 souls that lost the initiation to her, like as a payment or a tribute. And the way he does this is he throws the heads out the window, and they fall down into the canyon below the floating landmass. And that is where all these spiders live, and the Fate Mother rules, I guess, is inside this canyon. There's a bunch of, you know, spider babies and giant other bugs and stuff, and it's full of webs. And then we see a wide shot of like a big area, and we see one of those spiders has a little baby on its back that has like a seatbelt of spider webs so it won't fall off. And then we cut to Swamp Thing, who is now entering the, you know, afterlife dimensions by way of the green, and we get some narration that is, you know, familiar and also annoying to read. Because it is of a creature that we haven't seen since the Alan Moore run. There was an issue where some aliens came to Earth and they look like little alligators or crocodiles. And it's a fun issue, but the way that these aliens speak is very, very hard to understand sometimes. I will read a little bit so you guys can understand what it sounds like, but it is very annoying, and I will just paraphrase it going further. So the alien narrates, I was espousing out upon the misty mists, adventuring past my lady's lap, when I not unnoticed the monstrosity that I was toddling hereabouts almost certain. He had wanderlost into the lady. Like those pre-4 who'd scrappled through, I configured he'd still perplexed around his dislocation, as most had been behind their deaths. So in case you didn't get that, what's going on is the alien is peeking out from some plant life, and he sees Swamp Thing walking out of like the mist that kind of divides the dimensions. And so he sees him and he knows what he is. He's like, it's that monster from when we landed in the swamp. And this one is actually named Bartleby, this alien, and he dies in that issue by getting eaten by an alligator because he doesn't understand that they are like just base animals and he's more intelligent. So he tries to go up to them and they kill him and eat him. And so all Bartleby knows is this, you know, Swamp Thing monster was part of that. So he's scared and he's like, I see it walking around, and he seems lost and perplexed, as most people are when they die and then arrive here. So as Swamp Thing continues to walk further into this afterlife world, he comes through like a brushy area where there's like water and lily pads and stuff, kind of looks more like his home. And he sees other aliens there that have also been in the comics. One was from the 70s run, And then we retouched back on that, I think, in the Rick Veitch run when the wife of that alien who died in the 70s came to try to find him, and she also gets killed. And they were not mean aliens, they were good aliens, and Swamp Thing got along with them. So when he sees them, he's like, hey, and he like waves at them. And then he hears something rustling in the bushes next to him, and he's like, who? And then before he can really do anything, Bartleby runs out with like a wood sword that he made, seemingly to attack Swamp Thing, because like I said, he thinks that Swamp Thing's like mean or bad. But when Swamp Thing sees him, he's very happy, and he actually picks Bartleby up and like a baby, because he looks like an alligator or a crocodile, but he is the size of a human baby. So once Swamp Thing kind of tells him what's going on, Bartleby understands that he's not evil or bad. And Swamp Thing asks them if they've seen his baby around here at all. And it doesn't seem like they have, but Bartleby offers to kind of show him the way through these areas, because there's multiple like dimensions. Like it said earlier, each person that dies kind of creates their own pocket dimension of what their afterlife would look like. So Bartleby takes Swamp Thing's hand and begins to lead him through the areas of the afterlife. Then we cut back to Abby, who is still in the same position on the ground, crying, holding and swaddling the skeleton of baby Tefe as she waits for Swamp Thing to come back. And that is the end of the issue. So if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email me at planestrains@comicbooks, all one word, @gmail.com. And until next time, stay swampy.